This video is going to be more about how we wired up the mirrors and tips and tricks and shortcuts on how to install different parts or disassemble different parts. One thing I want to add and make clear, these mirrors did not come with these puddle lights. They actually came with this like blank plate. So all the wiring for this puddle light, we did custom through the mirror. I just want to make that clear.
Okay. So we wanted to wire up these mirrors that have running lights, turn signals, as well as puddle lights. So we're trying to find a good place to pull most of those wires from. The wiring diagram was unclear as what was going on inside the vehicle. And we thought the best place to go is the power delivery module. I think that's what Dodge calls this. They have one style up until I believe 05, and then 06 it became more functional, so it may be a little different. Your truck may be different, and the wire colors may be different. That's what we found. But the way we addressed it was we went to the power delivery module. Disconnected the batteries, we loosened up the washer jug. One bolt, I think it was a 13mm head for this bracket. There's a single clip down there. And just want to remind you, we're not going to go over every detail in this. We're going to give you a quick overview because there's plenty of videos on how to remove all these components. The fuse panel or the power delivery module, to remove it, after this bolt is removed and this plastic pin down here is removed, it's actually locked into the battery tray as well, and it's in like a keyed slot. There's two pins. You actually have to slide it towards the passenger side and then wiggle it, and you can get the pins out. And if you look down, you can see the slots in the battery tray as well as the pins in the power delivery module. So once the power delivery module is loosened up, we tilt it back. For this vehicle, the two connectors we wanted to go to was the C3 connector, which is this green one here, and the C1 connector, which is the blue one here. And from what I can gather, that's what Dodge calls them. To get the connectors out, the first thing you want to do is on this blue connector, if you look down here, that red lock is there. And what you want to do is pull the red lock up. I'm going to use a little pry bar, screwdriver, up like that. And then you'll work this lever as you pull the connector out to dislodge the connector. Once that one's out, there's normally a red lock on this connector, on the green connector. We've already removed it. So you just depress that and you would pull this connector out. Remember to put the lock back in and make sure the connector is secure when you're done. For our particular vehicle, the left front turn signal was a white wire with a green tracer, and the right front was a white wire with a tan tracer. So we found those, we tagged the wires here, and then we tagged the park light wire inside this connector. And this one, I believe they said it was a black with yellow tracer, but we found it was just a solid black wire. So we tagged that wire there. We used sealed butt connectors. We loomed it up, and then we ran it behind the battery, through the grommet into the through the bulkhead into the cabin. We want to seal that connector a little bit better, but that's how it is for now. Okay, so we tagged the turn signals from this connector here, and one of the wires was here. This was the white with green tracer, and then the white with tan tracer was here. Like I said earlier, the wire colors may be different or the locations may be different for your vehicle. So please check the wiring diagram for your vehicle. We also tested these with a meter to see which one was getting battery voltage with the turn signals on or flashing with the turn signals on, and those were the ones for us. So those are the wires that we tagged. All right, to put the lock back in the connector, it popped out on us. So you partially put the lock in, slide the connector in, make sure it's thoroughly seated, then push the lock in. Give the connector a tug to make sure it's fully seated. For the larger connector with the lever on it, you want to insert it, get the pins lined up with the entrance of the lever. Work the connector as you pull the lever down. When it's fully seated, slide the red lock down. Make sure the lever doesn't roll up on you, and make sure the connector is tight. After that, we'll just roll this back into place and bolt it back up, as well as resecure the washer jug. Okay, so now that we have all the wires that we want to use for the mirrors and they're into the cabin of the vehicle, how do we get them into the doors? So Dodge is a little bit unique. First time I've worked with one of these, and I found the best way is to pull this connector out. You don't have to actually split the connector, and there's enough gap between this black connector and the white connector, and actually between the white connector and the top of it to run the wiring. So here's the wiring that came with the mirror kit for the ground, the turn signal, and the running light. They're fairly small, I'd say 22, 24 gauge, something like that. They were easy enough to fit in there. For the puddle light, what we had, the thinnest we had on hand was an 18 gauge, so we ran that. So we ran those through this grommet, and then what you'll have to do is fasten the boot back onto the grommet and then snap it back into the A-pillar. Inside the door, we traced the factory wiring, and we wire tied it to come through the door, come up, and as you can see, it meets the mirror in the factory look. We didn't pull it apart for this demonstration, but in order to fish the wires through, we pulled the speaker out and we loosened up the window track. So there's a bolt here for the window track, and there's one here. And we just pulled it out of the way, and that gave us more access for our hand to fit in there to try to feed the wires through the grommet. We didn't want any undue strain on this harness because we wanted it to be durable and last, the rest of the life of the vehicle. To make the wires fit through the hole in the door, you can see there's a piece of black insulating or sealant tape here. We had to dimple the door because it was contacting the wires. I didn't like how it was contacting the wires. I was afraid it would abrade it over time. So we just dimpled this hole, and it was not an issue. We just put this sealant tape over it, and the wires actually will slide in and out of the door. They're not being pinched, and it's a good fit for them there. As far as serviceability, the mirrors come with this connector here, which is a ground, the turn signal, and the running light. And then this is the power for the puddle light. It's not serviceable. We used a solder butt connector, but if we ever have to service it and pull the mirror off, we'll probably replace this 3-wire connector with a 4-wire to make it completely serviceable at that point. The other thing we did was the mirrors have provisions for puddle lights, but it doesn't have puddle lights. So we bought a puddle light off of Amazon. And what we did was we used this existing ground inside the mirror, so we're not running an additional ground outside. So we tagged this ground inside the mirror, then we just ran the power for the puddle light right here. All right, so now that we have the left, right, and the park lights run from the power module under the hood into the cabin of the vehicle, we want to do something with the puddle lights. For this application, we decided to connect those to the cargo lamp. We didn't want them attached to the dome light in case we were driving, turning the dome light on. We didn't necessarily want those on. And plus, the cargo light comes on when using the remote to unlock the vehicle. We thought that was the best option for this vehicle. So the cargo light is run in this harness. It goes through the A-pillar, so it's easy enough to tag. It was a second wire down here in this cavity in this vehicle. This wire was also white with a tan stripe. And so we tagged this wire and we just ran it down the A-pillar to bundle up with the other wires that came from under the hood. The other thing about where we tagged all of our wires from is they're fused. The circuits are already fused because we're just tagging onto an existing circuit. So we didn't feel it was necessary to add any additional circuit protection for what we ran. The other thing I wanted to mention was this vehicle has LED bulbs on the exterior for turn and brake, so on and so forth. So there are already resistors wired in for that. But if you have traditional bulbs and you're adding these LEDs, you probably won't need resistors because you have the resistance of the traditional bulbs already in the vehicle.
Here's another 4th gen style tow mirror for 3rd gen. And they give you studs right here so you can bolt it to the door. And what we found on both of the aftermarket set, as the one they give you, the stud that goes here, the stud that's closest to the front of the truck, is just too short when it's going through the door to bolt it on. So what you end up having to do is take the OEM bolt and swapping it out right here, so you have enough thread to bolt it on through the door.